Hi, I'm Brooke Alexander in New York City. This week on World Beat, it's the return of the Killer Bees, Bono, Beck, and Becker. Steely Dan, the first studio album from Becker and Fagan in 20 years.
Action!
Bono in Berlin. The U2 frontman checks into the $1 Million Hotel. And Beck wins a Grammy and more critical acclaim. Steely Dan has never been a band to rush from one album to the next. But the 20-year gap between the last studio album, Gaucho, and this week's release of Two Against Nature can be considered downright tardy. The sophisticated jazz fusion, injected with humor, has survived the decades intact. World Beat tracked down Donald Fagen, Walter Becker, and another Steely collaborator, Michael McDonald, to talk about the old times and the new. Describe the circumstances that brought you two back into the studio after 20 years.
The truth is that we've been actually working in the studio since the early 90s. Donald did a solo album called Kamacuria that I produced. And then I did a solo album called 11 Tracks of Whack, which he produced.
Down at the bottom where your demons fly. Down at the bottom of the eastern sky.
In between tours, we've been working in the studio together, and of course we did a live album from the '94 tour, and we had written songs together in the '80s, so we're just sort of, you know, picking up again on something that had been going on.
Originally, we had a regular sort of rock and roll band that had been kludged together very quickly in the early '70s, and after touring for a couple of years, we realized that there were some stylistic problems with the other players, and got a lot of energy, but we wanted something else. So that's part of the reason we stopped touring and went into the studios and started using musicians.
I always kind of thought of it as a great feather in my cap to have worked with those guys. You know, to be able to say that I knew and worked with them is, for me, a great sense of pride, because the standard of recordings that they've always made were just phenomenal. Donald and Walter hold a very incredible position, and you know, I use pop music in a general term, but you know, because their music is so much a cross-pollination of so many things, you know.
Why do you think that your songs, that even the ones you recorded 20 years ago, still sound fresh in today's music scene? Did you realize at any point that you were making something special?
To the extent that that's true, I think it would be because of the fact that they did not depend or incorporate stylistic, 70s stylistic devices and elements to any noticeable extent. They were sort of as, you know, free of that as possible. You know, it's like, in a way, if you look at old pictures of people from, you know, 20 or 30 years ago, the people that sort of had the least stylistic, you know, sense of themselves at that time looked the least dated. And I think that's probably...
That's why Einstein always looks good.
That's why he always looks as fresh as he does, yeah.
You just didn't care, you know? Cousin Dupree is kind of a traditional, fun country sort of tune, and yeah, we have a little story in there, you know, that's you know, maybe a little, as my father would say, risque, but it's supposed to be, it's all in fun, and you know, I hope it's received that way.
Why do you think few artists rarely introduce humor to their songs?
No sense of humor.
They're not funny.
They're not funny, you know. You got to be at least a little funny. We're not that funny either, but at least we try, you know. This last album, Two Against Nature, really kind of, as far as I'm concerned, really buries all the other records. And if you really want to get a sense of what it's, you know, we're about, it's really all contained in this CD.
Probably the best thing would be to take all of the old Steely Dan albums, throw them away, get the new one, absorb that, and then buy the old ones again and
that's what I would
re-experience them in the context of the new one.
From Steely Dan's latest cut to a whole bunch of others, Luke